Every house, every king, and every battle has its own truth. But there are stories older than crowns, darker than the night, and more dangerous than any blade. They were never written in books. They were whispered to fire, to the trees, and to the dead gods. And today, we dare to uncover one of them. The wind whispered through the white woods beyond the wall, cold and eternal, like the breath of the old gods themselves. Snow fell in soft, endless curtains, cloaking the world in silence. Beneath an ancient weirwood, whose roots spread like veins through the frozen earth, a boy sat still as a statue, his eyes pale and unfocused. Bran Stark had not been a boy for some time now, though he still wore the face of one. His mind had grown vast, stretching across time and memory, slipping through the eyes of ravens and wolves and trees. Yet even in the endless quiet of the Greenseer's cave, where the children of the forest whispered in strange tongues and the pale roots glowed faintly with life, he felt a stirring of unease. A sound echoed through the weirwood's heart, a faint thrum, like a heartbeat under ice. "Something is wrong," whispered a voice in the leaves. It was Leaf, the last of the children who still lingered near him. Her eyes were golden and old as dawn, her small frame wrapped in furs and bark. The trees speak of unrest. The song beneath the roots is changing. Bran blinked, returning to himself. Changing how? Leaf placed a small hand against the weirwood trunk. There's a shadow beneath the snow, something stirring that should never wake. Bran reached with his mind into the weirwood's network, the ancient web of memories that bound the old gods and all who served them. He felt the heartbeat of the north, faint but vast. Through the trees, he saw flashes, shapes moving beneath the ice, a crack of red light far to the east, and the echo of a voice that was not human, not any longer. Then came the whisper, low and cold as death. "The wall is breaking." He gasped and fell back, heart pounding. "The wall," he murmured. "The wall is held by old magic. It cannot break." "The wall is old," said Leaf softly, "and all things old begin to crumble. The spells of the first men were strong, but even the strongest ward fades when the world forgets its song." Bran rose from his place beneath the weirwood, snowflakes catching in his dark hair. He looked toward the cave's entrance, where the light of the sun was a pale smear through the falling snow. The world beyond was vast, dangerous, and alive with secrets. "I must see," he said at last. "If the wall weakens, all will fall." Leaf's gaze was sorrowful. To look is to risk being seen. There are eyes in the dark that remember the taste of Greenseer blood. But Bran was not afraid. He had seen too much already. His family's fall, Winterfell in flames, the long night creeping closer. If the magic of the wall was failing, he could not remain idle. He closed his eyes once more and let his spirit drift outward through the roots and snow and air. The world opened before him. He saw through the eyes of a raven flying over the frost fangs, jagged peaks piercing the clouds, their valleys filled with shadow. Far below, he glimpsed the ruins of an old Night's Watch outpost, its walls half buried in ice. Strange blue light flickered there, faint but unmistakable. A presence watched him from that place, unseen but aware. He felt it like a cold hand brushing his soul. "Who are you?" he whispered through the raven's beak. The wind answered, carrying a whisper that froze his heart. "You should not have come, Stark of Winterfell." The raven tumbled from the sky, its wings seizing midair. Bran's spirit tore free and hurtled back through the weirwood roots, snapping awake with a cry. Leaf was beside him in an instant, her golden eyes wide. "What did you see?" Bran's voice trembled. "A place of the watch, buried in snow, but something is alive there, something old." Leaf's gaze turned distant, her brow furrowing. "There was a watch post in the Frostfangs once. Night Fort's shadow, the men called it. Abandoned long before your great-grandfather's time. They said the ground there was cursed." Bran swallowed hard. "It's not just cursed, it's awake." The words lingered in the cold air like frost. Somewhere above, the wind howled through the cave mouth, long and mournful, as if the forest itself were warning him away. But Bran knew the truth now. The wall's magic was weakening, and whatever slept beneath the snow was stirring to meet it. He turned to Leaf. "I must go there, through the trees, through the roots. I can find it." Leaf shook her head. "You meddle with forces beyond knowing. There are things even the old gods fear." Bran's eyes, pale and bright, fixed on hers. "And if we do nothing, all men will fall to the darkness beyond the wall. I cannot wait and watch." For a long moment, Leaf said nothing. Then she nodded once, solemnly. "Then may the old gods guard you, Brandon Stark. For the path of the Greenseer is one of knowledge, and of loss." Bran took a deep breath and sat once more beneath the weirwood. The roots wound gently around his legs, pulsing faintly with life. He closed his eyes and reached out again, beyond the cave, beyond the forest, toward the faint glow of that ruined outpost. The snow whispered secrets as he passed. The trees murmured names long forgotten, and somewhere, beneath miles of frozen stone and ice, a voice was waiting for him, patient and ancient, like the heartbeat of winter itself. "Come to me," it whispered. "Come and remember what was buried." And Bran Stark, last of his line beyond the wall, felt the pull of destiny drawing him once more into the heart of the unknown. Bran's spirit drifted through a vast expanse of darkness and snow, moving not as flesh, but as thought. The world blurred beneath him, ridges of ice, rivers frozen in mid-flow, forests buried beneath white silence. Ravens stirred in his wake, stirred by his call, and through their eyes he glimpsed a landscape haunted by wind and shadow. The Frostfangs rose before him like jagged teeth, a wall of stone and storm. Within those peaks lay the place he had seen in his vision, the broken watchpost men once called Night Fort's shadow. Its black stones jutted from the mountainside like the ribs of a dead giant. Snow smothered the ruins, and the air shimmered faintly, as though some unseen power still lingered there. Bran guided the ravens closer. Through their eyes, he saw the remnants of a gate half buried in ice, the sigil of the night's watch carved faintly upon its lintel. "I am the sword in the darkness." But the words were cracked, filled with frost, and something cold and unnatural pulsed from within. Then came the whisper again, clearer this time. "Little Greenseer, you seek what should not be found." The ravens shrieked, scattering into the storm. Bran tried to pull back, but the whisper turned to a voice, old, echoing from every flake of snow. "You would mend the wall, child of Winterfell, but you know not what sleeps beneath it." "I must see," Bran answered, his voice trembling across the void. "If the wall fails, all falls. Tell me who you are." For a moment, silence. Then the snow beneath the ruined watchpost shifted, and through the white haze rose the shape of a tree, or what once had been one. A weirwood, blackened and cracked, its bark burned as if by fire, its face twisted into a scream. The roots reached upward, grasping like hands. Bran felt their pull, the strength of their old, broken magic. He tried to break free, but the vision swallowed him whole. He stood upon the stones of the watchpost now, the cold biting through his ghostly limbs. The heart tree loomed before him, its red sap frozen to dark glass. Within its face, something stirred, eyes opening, red as embers. "Who are you?" Bran demanded again. The face smiled, slow and dreadful. "Once I was as you are, a watcher of the woods, a voice for the old gods. But when the first long night fell, I looked into the darkness, and the darkness looked back. You're one of the Greenseers," Bran realized, "from the time of the children." "Was," said the voice, "until they bound me here. The children feared what I had become, the things I saw when I reached too far. They chained my spirit to this tree, and so I slept, until your sight brushed against mine and woke me." The ground trembled beneath him. The air filled with whispers, thousands of them murmuring from the snow. Bran could feel the weirwood network tremble as the spirit reached through it, tendrils of corruption winding through the roots. "You cannot touch the heart trees," Bran said, trying to hold his voice steady. "They belong to the old gods." The smile deepened. "I am one of your old gods, boy. Forgotten, buried, but not gone. The wall was my prison once, but now its chains weaken. Soon, I will remember the true shape of winter." Bran felt the world tilt, a surge of memories flooding through him. He saw visions not his own, the dawn of the first men, weirwoods burning, a woman with skin of bark and tears of sap chanting beneath the stars, and a great shadow sweeping across the land like night made flesh. The spirit's voice thundered in his mind. The children sought to seal away what they could not destroy, but you, little Stark, would open the way again. "No!" Bran cried. "I seek to protect the wall, not break it." But the corrupted Greenseer only laughed, the sound echoing like cracking ice. "Then come to me, child of the wolf, if you dare. Bring your roots, your dreams, your power. The North remembers more than you know." The weirwood's eyes flared crimson. Bran's vision shattered, and he was hurled back into his body with a cry. He awoke beneath the weirwood in the cave, sweat freezing on his brow. Leaf stood nearby, eyes wide with fear. "You were gone too long," she whispered. The roots quivered as though in pain. Bran's voice was hoarse. "There's something bound beneath the mountains. A Greenseer turned against the children. He's using the weirwoods to spread his power." Leaf's face grew pale as frost. "It cannot be. We sealed him away before the dawn of men. He was called the Root Breaker." Bran's thoughts raced. He said the wall was his prison, that its wards are failing. Leaf bowed her head. "If that is true, then the long night may come again." The roots beneath them pulsed faintly, uneasy. Bran felt the tremor through the ground, as though the entire forest had drawn a breath. "Then we must stop him," he said. Leaf met his gaze, her golden eyes fierce despite her fear. "To fight him, you must master all the paths of the Greenseer. You must walk not only through the roots of trees, but through the blood of the earth itself. No mortal mind has done so without breaking." Bran straightened, though his limbs trembled. "I have no choice." Leaf regarded him for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. You will need a guide, one of the trees nearest his prison. But you must go carefully, for if he sees you before you are ready..." Her words trailed off. She did not need to finish. Bran knew what it meant. The snow outside the cave was falling harder now, the wind wailing through the pass. Somewhere beyond the storm, the dead marched, and the magic that held them at bay was fraying. Bran sat beneath the weirwood once more, letting its roots curl around him like the arms of an ancient guardian. He closed his eyes, feeling the heartbeat of the forest, faint but steady. He whispered into the stillness, "Show me the way." The vision came at once, a path of pale trees winding through snow, leading toward the mountains where a black weirwood waited beneath the ice. He saw the faces of men who had once guarded that place, their bones frozen where they fell. And far beyond them, deep under the mountain's roots, he saw the glow of red eyes opening once more. Bran drew in a slow breath. "Then I will find him," he murmured, "and I will end what was begun." The forest whispered in reply, its voice both warning and blessing. And as Bran Stark sank once more into the weirwood's song, the first crack split the ice above Nightfort's shadow, a sound that echoed for miles through the Frostfangs, like the heartbeat of something awakening after an age-long sleep. The storm raged above the cave for 3 days and 3 nights. Wind tore through the pines, and snow fell in endless sheets, covering the world beyond in white oblivion. Within, the fire burned low, throwing shadows along the walls carved with roots. Bran scarcely moved from beneath the weirwood, his skin pale, his eyes distant. His spirit walked elsewhere, far beyond the reach of mortal storms. Each time he returned to his body, he found Leaf watching him, silent, her golden eyes filled with something between worry and awe. The children of the forest were not easily shaken, but even she could sense the change in the air, the restless hum that stirred the very roots of the world. "The others feel it too," she murmured on the morning of the 4th day. "The trees whisper in fear. The old powers do not sleep easily." Bran sat up, his breath fogging in the cold. "He is spreading. The root breaker." Leaf's lips tightened. "Then the path is already darkening. You cannot fight him through sight alone. He has sunk his will into the ground itself. If you wish to reach him, you must follow the veins of the world, not the branches." Bran frowned. "How do I do that?" She studied him for a long moment, her small hand resting on the weirwood trunk. "There is a place west of here, the Hollow of Faces. It was once where the Greenseers of old learned to walk the deep paths. Beneath its earth run the oldest roots of the forest. They will take you where you need to go, if you survive their call." "Then I will go," Bran said at once. Leaf gave a soft, almost sorrowful sigh. "It is not a place of men, Bran Stark. The forest remembers blood and bone. You will see much that you do not wish to see." "I have seen my father die," he said quietly. "I have seen Winterfell burn. There is little left that can frighten me." Leaf looked at him then with something like pity. "Every Greenseer says that before the end." Still, she led him from the cave before the sun had risen fully. The snowstorm had calmed, leaving the forest still and heavy beneath its new white shroud. The sky was a dull gray, and the silence that hung over the woods was deep, as though the world itself held its breath. They traveled through the snow, Leaf moving lightly atop it while Bran followed in her wake, his feet leaving prints that filled almost instantly with flakes. They crossed frozen streams and passed trees so ancient their faces had been worn smooth by time. As they went, the forest grew stranger, the trunks twisted, the branches reaching like gnarled fingers toward the pale sky. At last, they came to a clearing surrounded by massive oaks and weirwoods grown so close together, their roots formed a living wall. At the center was a hollow, a wide pit where the snow did not fall, and the earth was bare, black, and glistening with frost. Faces carved in the trees watched from all sides, dozens of them, their red eyes weeping sap. "The hollow of faces," Leaf whispered. "Once, many voices spoke here. Now it sleeps, waiting for one who dares to listen." Bran swallowed hard and stepped to the edge of the pit. The air was colder here, the kind of cold that went beyond flesh and bone, the kind that bit at the soul. He could feel something beneath the earth, a slow pulse, steady and ancient. "What must I do?" he asked. "Sit," said Leaf. "Place your hands upon the ground. Do not move, no matter what you see or hear. If you let go before the song ends, the forest will not forgive you." Bran nodded once, then knelt in the hollow. The soil was hard and cold, yet when he touched it, warmth spread through his fingers. A strange, living warmth, as though the ground itself recognized him. He closed his eyes. The world shifted. He was falling again, down through layers of earth and time. He saw flashes of the past, the first men carving faces into trees, the children dancing beneath the moon, blood spilled on weirwood roots. He felt the thrum of the old magic running beneath the land, like the heartbeat of some buried god. Then came the whispers, 1,000 voices murmuring in tongues long forgotten. They spoke of the dawn age, of the pact between man and forest, of oaths broken and promises left to rot. And among them, Bran heard another voice, colder, stronger. "So you come, young wolf. You seek to bind what was loosed, but every chain you forge I will break." Bran's heart pounded. "Show yourself!" The darkness parted, revealing a vast cavern of ice and stone. Roots wound through the walls like veins, glowing faintly red. And there, bound among them, was a man, or something that had once been a man. His skin was gray and cracked, his hair white as snow, his eyes 2 embers burning in the gloom. The roots pierced his flesh like chains. "I have waited long for another Greenseer," the rootbreaker said, his voice like the grinding of stone. "The children feared me, called me cursed, yet it was I who gave them the secret of life everlasting, the power that became the whites you fear." Bran recoiled. "You made them?" "I opened the path," the rootbreaker said with a grim smile. "I saw that the dead could serve, that the roots could feed not only on life, but on memory." His voice grew soft, almost tender. "And now, the forest feeds upon you as well. Every sight you take, every vision, the trees drink it in. You are already mine, boy." Bran struggled against the pull, but the roots held him fast. He felt their cold touch against his mind, probing, searching. Images flared before him, his father's face, Arya's laughter, the godswood at Winterfell, all flickering like candles in the wind. "No," he whispered, "you will not have me." The rootbreaker's eyes burned brighter. "You cannot fight what you are. The Greenseer's gift is not a gift at all. It is hunger. You think you see through the trees, but the trees see through you." The cavern shook, ice cracking overhead. Bran cried out as the vision twisted, the rootbreaker's chains snapping one by one. He reached out, his hand black with frost, but before he could touch Bran, a voice rang out through the roots. "Enough." Leaf stood within the vision now, her eyes blazing with green fire. She raised her small hand, and the roots tightened around the corrupted Greenseer, pulling him back into the stone. "Go, Bran!" she shouted. "Wake!" The world shattered. Bran gasped and opened his eyes, the cold air burning his lungs. He was back in the hollow, the ground trembling beneath him. The faces carved into the trees wept streams of red sap. Leaf knelt beside him, her body trembling with exhaustion. "He is stronger than I feared," she said softly. "He has touched the roots of the world. Even death cannot hold him." Bran sat up, shivering. then I must find a way to cut him from them. Leaf looked at him, her voice a whisper. To cut him from the roots is to wound the forest itself. Are you ready to make that choice? Bran stared into the dark trees, where the faces seemed to shift and watch. If I must, he said, before he takes everything. The wind rose again through the hollow, carrying with it the faintest echo of laughter, the rootbreakers' laughter, fading into the distance like thunder across frozen hills. The dawn broke gray and pale above the frost fangs, though little light reached the forest below. The sky was a sheet of cloud, heavy with snow yet to fall. Bran and Leaf stood in the hollow of faces, the ground beneath them still scarred from the tremors that had followed the rootbreakers' awakening. The air smelled of sap and blood. He grows stronger with every hour, Leaf murmured, touching one of the weeping trees. The forest's pain feeds him. Even now, he spreads his roots through the veins of the north. Bran turned his gaze toward the distant mountains. Though his body was small, his mind stretched far and wide, and through the eyes of ravens he saw how the snows were changing, darker as if touched by shadow. The weirwoods near the wall whispered in distress, their faces twisted with fear. He's using the wall's magic, Bran said, drawing from it like a wound that never heals. Leaf nodded. That power was made to bind, not to break. But to one like him, the difference is nothing. He twists the old spells to his will. Bran clenched his hands, feeling the tremor of life beneath the frozen earth. Then I must go to the wall itself. If his strength comes from it, that's where he'll fall. Leaf's golden eyes narrowed. Do you think it's so simple? You walk among the memories of gods, boy. The wall was not only stone and ice, it was song, blood, and sacrifice. The Greenseers of the Dawn Age wove their spirits into its making. You would have to face them too. I will face whatever I must. Leaf regarded him for a long moment. You speak like a Stark, brave and stubborn. Her voice softened. But courage alone cannot win against him. You must understand the true shape of your power. A Greenseer is not a sword. You are the river that flows through all things. You must learn to bend it, not wield it. Bran frowned, uncertain. How? You must go deeper still, to the heart of the network itself. The children called it the Rootway, a place beneath the world where every weirwood joins. Bran's pulse quickened. And there I'll find the power to stop him? Perhaps, said Leaf. Or perhaps you'll find only what he became. The decision was made. That night, as the storm gathered anew, Bran sat beneath the hollow's largest weirwood, the one whose carved face had no eyes, only smooth bark, like the blank visage of something that had forgotten how to see. Leaf scattered acorn shells and fragments of bone around him, whispering in the tongue of her kind ancient words that thrummed with the same pulse as the trees. When the ritual was done, she placed her small hand on his brow. Go with the old gods, Bran Stark. Remember who you are, no matter what the roots show you. He closed his eyes. The earth opened beneath him. He fell not through darkness this time, but through light, green and red and white, the colors of the weirwood's blood and heart. He passed through memories that were not his own, the carving of the first faces, the laughter of the children, the cries of men at war. The Rootway was vast, a labyrinth of pulsing roots and glowing sap that connected all trees, all memories, all life. Bran's spirit drifted along its paths, drawn by the same cold pulse that haunted his dreams. The deeper he went, the colder it grew. The roots around him grew black and slick, their glow dimming to a sickly blue. The whispers turned to cries. He followed them to a vast hollow beneath the world, a cavern lit by the faint shimmer of frozen sap. At its center stood a weirwood unlike any he had seen, its trunk split in two, half white as snow, half charred black. Its face was carved in anguish, and from its mouth flowed a slow trickle of red that froze as it touched the ground. The Rootbreaker's prison. Bran approached carefully, though his spirit trembled. The air here was heavy with power, the kind that bent time and memory. He could feel eyes upon him, though he saw no one. "You came," said the voice, quiet and terrible. The figure stood behind the tree, half shadow, half light. His form shifted like mist, now a man, now something older, his face flickering through ages. "I had to," Bran said. "You're tearing the forest apart." "The forest tears itself," the Rootbreaker replied. "I only remind it of what it is, endless, consuming, alive." He stepped closer, and Bran saw his eyes, pale blue, rimmed with red, the eyes of a man who had looked too long into death. "Do you not feel it, boy? The trees whisper in your sleep. They drink your memories, your fears, your loves. What do you think they do with them?" Bran hesitated. He had felt it once or twice. The faint echo of sorrow when he reached too far, the sense that something within the trees watched back. "You twist their gift," Bran said. "You turn memory into hunger." The Rootbreaker laughed softly. "Memory is hunger. The world feeds on itself, Stark. Every leaf falls to feed the roots. Every death feeds life. That is the truth of the Greenseer's path." Bran stood his ground. "If that's true, then you've forgotten what it means to live." The other's smile faded. "And you've yet to learn what it means to die." The ground split beneath them, and suddenly they were standing not in the cavern, but in a field of snow beneath a red sky. Winterfell stood before them, or the memory of it, its towers whole again, the Godswood unburned. Bran saw himself as a boy, climbing the walls, laughing with his brothers. "This is what you cling to," said the Rootbreaker, "a child's dream of warmth. But all things end, Bran. Your father's honor, your home, even the gods you pray to. I offer you truth. Join me, and you will see beyond the lies of men." Bran watched the scene dissolve into ruin, the towers falling, the snow turning red with blood. He wanted to look away, but the Rootbreaker's power held him fast. "Is this what you want?" Bran whispered. "To destroy what's left of the world?" "To free it," the spirit said. "To unbind it from the chains of time and fate. To end the cycle of memory. Let the forest sleep again." Bran's heart hardened. "No, if the world forgets, it dies." The Rootbreaker's eyes narrowed. "Then you will stand against me. I will." The wind rose, and the dream shattered like glass. Bran fell back through the roots, tumbling through ages, through wars and winters, through the faces of kings long dead. When at last he opened his eyes, he was back beneath the hollow's weirwood. Leaf was there, her face drawn with fear. "You saw him again!" Bran nodded weakly. "He showed me the truth of his power. He wants to erase everything, to end memory itself." Leaf looked to the weeping faces around them. "Then the world will be unmade. The wall, the trees, the men, all bound in the same song." Bran struggled to his feet, his breath misting in the cold. "Then I'll have to change the song." "How?" she asked. "I don't know yet," he said, "but I know where it must end." He looked north toward the line of the wall hidden beyond the snow. At his prison, at the place where the first spell was cast. Leaf bowed her head. Then the world turns again. Once more, a Stark walks into the storm. And as they left the hollow behind, The forest groaned with the sound of shifting roots, as though the very earth waited to see which song would be sung next, that of memory or oblivion. The journey northward was long and cruel. The frost fangs rose higher, their peaks cutting into the clouds like spears of stone and ice. Bran rode upon the back of a great elk whose eyes were dark and wise, a beast called Snowmane, one of the last tamed by the children in ages past. Leaf rode beside him on a smaller elk, her movements silent as falling snow. They traveled through forests that men had forgotten, past rivers frozen to glass and cliffs that glittered with hoarfrost. Bran could feel the pulse of the weirwood network underfoot, the slow heartbeat of the north. The deeper they went, the heavier that pulse became, as though the very ground carried a fever. At night, when they camped beneath the shelter of the pines, Bran's dreams grew darker. He saw shadows moving beneath the ice, shapes like men, but twisted, bound to the roots of the world. They whispered in the voice of the rootbreaker, tempting, mocking, calling him by name. Bran of Winterfell, they hissed. The trees will eat your memories as they ate mine. The wall bleeds, the old magic dies. Come and see what you truly are. He would wake with his heart pounding, sweat freezing on his brow. Leaf said nothing of the dreams. She seemed to hear them too. By the 5th day, they reached the foothills of the Frostfangs, where the wind howled without rest. The mountains towered above them, their flanks carved with black rock and frozen waterfalls. The air was so cold it burned the lungs. Bran could sense the wall's presence even from here, not merely a wall of stone and ice, but a vast field of power, a shimmering barrier that divided life from death. Yet within that field, he could feel something rotten. The wall is sick, he said as they looked northward. Leaf's golden eyes were grim. It has been so since the long night ended. The wall was never meant to last forever. Now the rootbreaker drinks from its veins. Bran felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. Then he's beneath it? She nodded. At its foundations, in the hollow where the first Greenseers bound the cold with fire. They wove their souls into the spell, and one of them was he. His chains were forged from his own power. They pressed on. The wind tore at them, and the snow came thick and heavy. The elk moved slow, their breaths steaming in the frozen air. Once they saw a shape moving through the storm, tall, white, and still, a shadow with eyes like blue stars. Leaf drew her obsidian knife, but the figure did not come closer. It simply stood watching, then vanished into the white. "The dead stir already," Leaf said. "He calls them from their long sleep." By dusk, they came to the ruins of an ancient watchpost, half buried in the snow. Its black stones were cracked, its gatehouse torn open by time. Bran knew this place from his visions, Nightfort's shadow. They tethered the elk among the trees and stepped into the ruin. The air within was colder than the night outside. Frost clung to the walls in strange branching patterns, as though the ice itself had grown like vines. Beneath their feet, the stones pulsed faintly with light, blue and red, fighting beneath the surface. "The magic here is alive," Bran whispered. "Alive, yes," Leaf murmured, "but twisted. Be wary." They passed through the courtyard, where a half-buried well gaped like a wound. A faint red glow shone from its depths. Bran felt it calling to him. He approached slowly, leaning over the rim. The air that rose from below was warm and foul, smelling of sap and decay. He saw something beneath the water's surface. Not reflection, but movement. Leaf touched his arm. "Do not look too long. The water remembers." He turned away, shaken. The shadows around them seemed to breathe. As they moved deeper into the ruin, they found the remnants of the old watch hall. The roof had collapsed long ago, leaving only the ribs of beams and stone. At the far end, a massive weirwood root broke through the floor, splitting the flagstones like fingers tearing through flesh. Its bark was black, slick with frost, and it pulsed faintly, alive. Bran could feel it even before he touched it, the root breaker's presence, cold, vast, and endless. "This is it," Bran said softly. "This is where he's bound." Leaf stepped forward. "No, Bran Stark. This is where he was bound." The ground trembled. The air turned thick, heavy. A low hum filled the hall, rising in pitch until it became a voice. "You return again, child of Winterfell," it said. The words came not from any one place, but from the stones, the ice, the very air. "Did you think you could walk unseen into my shadow?" Bran braced himself, reaching into the weirwood network. "You cannot win. The wall still stands." The voice laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "Stands? No, boy. It remembers. It remembers the fire that forged it, the blood that sealed it, and it remembers me." A shape emerged from the shadows, not flesh, but spirit, tall and gray, its body shifting like smoke. Its eyes glowed faintly blue. Bran saw the face of a man, then a child, then something older than either. "I was the first of your kind," said the Rootbreaker. "I saw the dawn of magic and the folly of men. I am bound to the wall, as you soon shall be." Bran drew a breath. "You speak of freedom, but you are only another prisoner." The spirit tilted its head, curious. "A prisoner who learned to love his cage. I am the pulse beneath the ice. The wall lives because I live." Bran felt the truth of it. The wall's strength, the magic woven through every flake of its ice, pulsed in time with the being before him. "If I destroy you," Bran said, "the wall may fall." The Rootbreaker smiled. "And if you do not, it will fall anyway. The choice, little Greenseer, is between death and darkness. Which song will you sing?" Bran hesitated. He felt the weirwood roots beneath the hall quiver, reaching toward him, seeking his will. If he reached out, he could strike, pour his power into the network, and burn the corruption away. But what would be left afterward? Leaf's voice broke through his thoughts. "Bran, whatever you do, do not let him into your mind." The Rootbreaker turned, and the roots struck like snakes. They coiled around Bran's legs, his arms, his throat. He struggled, calling upon the sight, and for a heartbeat, the world dissolved into green light. He saw Leaf fighting the shadows, her knife flashing like lightning. He saw the weirwoods of the north weeping sap, their faces contorted in pain. And then he saw beyond. The wall itself, stretching for leagues, its heart glowing red and blue. In its center, a fissure. Through that crack, the Rootbreaker's power flowed. "See what you guard," the voice whispered. "See the folly of your fathers." Bran fought against the roots, his mind blazing. "No," he said. "I see their hope." The light around him flared, bright as dawn. The roots recoiled, hissing, and for a moment, Bran's spirit burned with the fire of all the weirwoods together. A chorus of memory and life. The Rootbreaker staggered back, his form rippling. "You would kill yourself to save them?" "If I must." The spirit screamed, a sound that shook the stones. The light in Bran's eyes turned white, and the ruin filled with the roar of breaking ice. For an instant, the world itself seemed to split in two. Life against death, green against blue. Then silence. Bran collapsed, breathless, the glow fading from his skin. Leaf knelt beside him, her small hands trembling. "He is not gone," she whispered. "You hurt him, but he is not gone." Bran looked to the trembling root that split the hall floor. It was still alive, though blackened, its pulse weaker now. "No," Bran said quietly, "but now I know where he truly hides." He turned his gaze north, beyond the wall, to the lands of endless ice, where no trees grew, but where something ancient still stirred. "That's where it ends," he murmured, "beyond the edge of the world." And the wind, howling through the broken stones, seemed to whisper back, a sound like laughter swallowed by the storm. The days that followed the battle at Nightfort's shadow were a blur of silence and snow. The wind no longer sang, it moaned. Even the trees seemed to shiver. Bran and Leaf made their camp among the ruins, the elk tethered beneath a leaning wall. The air was thick with the smell of cold stone and old magic. Bran spent long hours staring into the fire, his thoughts wandering through half-seen memories. He could still feel the echo of the Rootbreaker's presence, a pressure in the back of his mind, faint yet constant, like a drumbeat muffled beneath layers of ice. Every night it called to him, whispering in a voice that was almost his own. "We are alike, you and I, two roots of the same tree." He would wake with frost on his eyelashes and the taste of blood in his mouth. Each morning, the wall loomed nearer, a gray shadow in the distance, stretching endless across the horizon. Leaf watched him closely, saying little. Her golden eyes were dim with worry, though she hid it behind her calm. She moved through the camp like a spirit, tending the fire, whispering prayers to the old gods in a language Bran could not understand. At last, on the 7th day, she said, "He is in you." Bran did not look up. "I know. The Rootbreaker's will is like ivy. Once it finds a crack, it climbs until the whole tree is his. You cannot linger here. You must confront him before he takes root." "I've seen where he hides," Bran said, "beyond the wall, in the lands no tree remembers." Leaf's expression darkened. "No living Greenseer has crossed that waste. There are no roots there to guide you, only the memory of what once was. If you go, you walk through death itself." Bran lifted his gaze to the wall, that immense barrier of ice and spellcraft. "If I do nothing, death will walk through us." They broke camp at dawn. The elk carried them across the frozen river that marked the edge of the wilds, its surface glittering under the faint sun. As they drew near, the wall towered above them, a wall not merely of ice, but of time. Bran could feel its pulse in the air, a thrumming that shook his bones. He had seen it before through other eyes, but to stand beneath it was to stand beneath eternity. From afar, it seemed still. Up close, he saw that it moved, not like water, but like breath. The spells within it lived, shifting and changing. Faces flickered beneath the surface, pale and fleeting, as though the souls bound into its making still watched the world beyond. Leaf dismounted and pressed her palm against the ice. "The wall remembers him," she said softly. "He was part of the binding. His power held the cold back once, but now that same power leaks through the cracks." Bran placed his own hand beside hers. The ice was bitter cold, yet alive. He felt the web of magic stretching northward, deep into the lands of the dead, and within that web, he sensed a hollow place, the Rootbreaker's prison, still pulsing weakly like a dying heart. "I can reach him from here," Bran said. Leaf shook her head. "No. To face him, you must cross. You must step into the shadow he commands." "How?" "There is an old tunnel beneath the wall," she said. "A path the first men used before they built the Black Gate. The children sealed it long ago, but I can open it once more. Beyond lies the white waste. You must follow the aurora north until you find the place where the sky bleeds green. That is where the old god's fire still burns, where he waits." Bran nodded. He felt no fear now, only a deep and weary resolve. That night, under a moonless sky, they found the entrance to the tunnel, a cleft hidden behind a curtain of frozen moss. The opening breathed cold air, thick with the scent of ancient earth. Leaf raised her hands and whispered in her tongue. The ice cracked, splitting apart with a sound like thunder. Together, they stepped inside. The passage was narrow and low, the walls slick with frost. Strange runes glowed faintly along the stone, the marks of both men and children. The deeper they went, the dimmer the light became. Bran could hear whispers in the dark, soft and distant. They were not words, but echoes, memories left behind by those who had built this place. At last, they reached a gate of black stone carved with faces. Its eyes were open, glowing faint red. Bran felt them upon him, cold and knowing. "Who passes the wall?" the gate murmured. Its voice came from everywhere at once, deep as the world itself. Leaf stepped forward. The last Greenseer and the last child. The gate seemed to breathe. The faces rippled, shifting like water. "Then go," it said, "and may the living remember what you forget." The stone split, and the dark beyond swallowed them. They emerged hours later into a world of endless white. Snow stretched to the horizon, unbroken except by the black shards of mountains far to the north. The air was still. No sound, no life, only cold. The aurora burned faintly in the sky, its green fire swaying like a ghostly banner. Bran drew a deep breath, his lungs aching. "It's so quiet." Leaf's voice was barely a whisper. "This is the silence before creation. Here, the old gods sleep." They trudged forward, their furs stiff with frost. Days passed, though they could no longer tell one from another. The sun was a pale smudge, the moon a dim reflection. Their food dwindled, even the elk's breath grew shallow. Then, one night, Bran saw a light in the distance, red, like a wound in the snow. It pulsed faintly, calling to him. "There," he said. "That's where he is." Leaf followed his gaze. The fire of the dawn, the place where he fell. They walked toward it. The snow grew darker beneath their feet, stained with old blood. The wind began to whisper again, faint voices rising from the drifts. Shapes moved at the edge of sight, frozen figures half buried, the remains of men and beasts long dead. At the center of the waste stood a great fissure in the earth, steaming faintly despite the cold. From within it came the red light, slow and steady. Bran approached, his breath shallow. The heat stung his face. He looked down and saw roots, black and vast, spreading through the chasm like veins. They pulsed in rhythm with the light. "He's beneath this," Bran said. Leaf nodded. Then here the wall was born, and here it will end. The ground trembled. From the fissure rose a shape of smoke and ice, taller than any man, its face shifting through ages once more. The root breaker had awakened fully. "You cross the wall," he said. "You bring the forest into the land of death." Bran met his gaze. "I bring memory. I bring light." The root breaker's voice thundered. "Then let us see which the world desires." The storm rose around them, snow spiraling upward, as if the sky itself were being torn apart. Leaf drew her knife, its obsidian edge gleaming. Bran closed his eyes and reached once more into the roots, into every weirwood, every living memory across the north. He felt them answer, the whisper of the old gods, the pulse of wolves, the cry of ravens. The Rootbreaker's laughter filled the air. "You would bind me again?" "No," Bran said, his voice calm and cold as the wind. "I will end you." The light burst forth from his eyes, green and gold, searing through the darkness. The fissure blazed, and the land itself began to shake. The aurora split open above them, its fire spilling across the sky. And beneath it all, two powers met. Life and death, memory and oblivion, locked once more in their ancient struggle, as the world of men trembled on the edge of another long night. The snow burned like fire. The air split with thunder as Bran and the Rootbreaker clashed beneath the bleeding sky. The aurora blazed above them, ribbons of green and gold and red twisting like the veins of some great living creature. The land trembled. Bran stood at the edge of the fissure, his cloak whipped by the wind. The power of the weirwood surged through him, a living tide of voices and memories. He felt every tree, every root, every drop of sap in the north pulsing in answer to his call. The forest itself lived within him now. The Rootbreaker rose from the chasm like a storm made flesh. His form was no longer bound to one shape. He shifted from man to shadow to root and back again. His eyes glowed blue and white, brighter than the stars, and his voice echoed across the frozen waste. "You call upon the trees, Stark, but they are mine," he said. "I am the first root. I am the beginning and the end of the song you serve." "The song belongs to the gods," Bran answered. "And the gods remember what you forgot, that life must endure." The Rootbreaker laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "Endure? You mean suffer. You mean decay and die and be forgotten. I would free the world from that curse." He lifted his hand, and the snow rose with it. Shadows spilled from the fissure, shapes half man, half tree, bound in black bark. Their eyes were hollow pits glowing faintly blue. They moved toward Bran, their limbs creaking like wood in frost. Bran raised his own hands. The earth shuddered. From beneath the snow, white roots burst upward, glowing with green fire. They tangled with the shadows, pulling them down, burning them to ash. The Rootbreaker roared and struck again. A wave of dark power rippled from his body, freezing the air solid. The frost spread fast, crawling up Bran's legs, turning his breath to crystal. He could feel the cold trying to invade his thoughts, the same cold that had once taken the minds of men and turned them into whites. But he was not only man anymore. He reached deep within the roots that connected him to the world, to the godswood of Winterfell, to the heart trees of Bear Island, Skagos, and the Dreadfort. He felt their strength flow into him, burning the frost away. Light burst from his hands, the air filled with the scent of pine and blood. The Rootbreaker staggered back, his form flickering. "You are strong," the ancient Greenseer said, his voice low and full of grudging respect. "Stronger than I was at your age, but you are still bound by flesh, by fear. That will be your undoing." "I am not afraid," Bran said, though his heart pounded like a drum. "I am the memory of all who came before. You can't kill what has already lived." The Rootbreaker smiled, a hollow smile. "Then let us see." The world twisted. In an instant, Bran was no longer standing on the snow, but within the weirwood network itself, the rootway. Endless roots surrounded him, glowing red and white. He floated within them like a leaf caught in a current. Across from him, the Rootbreaker took form again, his body woven from the same roots, black and pulsing with blue light. "This is where it began," the Rootbreaker said. "Before men, before fire, before time. Here, all life was one, and it will be one again, when all returns to silence. He lunged, and their minds collided. The impact was not of flesh, but of will. Bran saw visions flashing around him, the breaking of the first men's swords, the pact with the children, the burning of the great weirwoods in the south. He saw the long night descending like a wave, and the Greenseers of old standing in a ring, chanting as they wove the wall. Among them was the Rootbreaker, younger, proud, alive, his eyes burning with the same hunger that filled him now. "You betrayed them," Bran said. "You tried to turn the wall into your own power." "I tried to perfect it," the Rootbreaker hissed. "They feared what they could not control, so they bound me in ice. But ice cracks and memory fades. You and I, we are not so different. You will see, in time." Bran felt the roots of the network tighten around him. The Rootbreaker's power poured through them, blackening them, spreading rot through the ancient web. The light dimmed. The whispers of the trees grew faint. For a moment, Bran faltered. His mind began to sink into the dark, swallowed by the cold. He saw Winterfell in ruins, his family lost, the world swallowed by shadow. Then came another voice, faint but clear. "Bran." It was his mother's voice, soft as snow. "You must remember who you are." He gasped and looked upward. The roots above him glowed red again, faint at first, then brighter. Within their glow, he saw faces, his father's stern gaze, Arya's wild grin, Sansa's steady eyes. Even Hodor stood among them, smiling sadly. "I am Bran Stark," he whispered, "of Winterfell." The words became power. The green light flared, surging through the roots, burning away the black. The Rootbreaker screamed, his form unraveling. "You cannot destroy me," he bellowed. "I am in every tree, every shadow." "Then I will burn every shadow," Bran said. The light became a storm. It poured through him, through the network, through every weirwood in the north. The faces carved in their trunks glowed like suns, their red eyes shining. The wall itself shuddered, its runes blazing bright white for the first time in thousands of years. The Rootbreaker howled and reached for Bran, but his hands turned to ash before they touched him. His body fractured, splitting into shards of darkness that dissolved into the roots. When the light faded, Bran stood alone in the rootway. The silence was vast and deep, but peaceful. He could feel the trees breathing again, free of the corruption that had twisted them. Yet even as relief filled him, he sensed something else. Absence. A hollow space within the network, a piece of himself gone missing. He looked down and saw that his own shadow had vanished. The voice of Leaf reached him faintly, echoing through the roots. "Bran, come back!" He followed her voice, climbing upward through the light until the world of snow and air returned. He awoke, lying at the edge of the fissure, the storm gone, the sky pale and calm. Leaf knelt beside him, her small hands pressed to his chest. "Your heart stopped," she whispered. "For a moment, I thought you had gone. I went further than I meant to," Bran murmured. His voice was hoarse, older somehow. Leaf studied him. "You drove him out." Bran nodded slowly. "But not destroyed. He left something behind. A seed." Her expression darkened. "Then the forest will never rest." Bran looked north, where the horizon shimmered faintly beneath the dawn. "Perhaps not, but neither will I." He rose, leaning on his staff of carved weirwood, and the wind caught his hair. He felt the world breathing through him. Every tree, every raven, every root. The boy from Winterfell was gone now. What remained was something older, quieter, and vast. Leaf bowed her head. "You have become what he once was, and what he failed to be." Bran looked toward the distant wall, gleaming faintly with new light. "No," he said. "I have become what the world needs." And as the sun rose above the endless snow, Bran Stark, last Greenseer of the North, began his long journey back toward the living world, where men still dreamed of summer, never knowing how close the cold had come once more. The North was changed. Even before Bran and Leaf returned to the Wall, the land seemed to know that something had broken and mended again. The air carried a stillness unlike any the Northmen had ever known, as if the whole of creation held its breath. Even the wind, that restless, eternal wanderer, whispered now with a voice gentler than before. Bran felt it in his bones as they descended the Frostfangs. He was not as he had been. The boy who had left the cave beyond the Wall was gone. The Greenseer who returned was something else, half man, half memory, his soul stitched into the roots of the world. His eyes, once brown, were now pale as milk and glimmered faintly green in the dark. When he dreamed, he no longer slept. When he woke, he no longer needed to breathe. Leaf watched him in silence. Her steps left no mark in the snow, and yet her face bore the weight of sorrow. She had seen such changes before, seen men touched by the weirwoods, turned into vessels of memory, their humanity slowly stripped away like bark from a tree. At the base of the mountains, they stopped to rest beside a frozen stream. The elk grazed weakly on lichen scraped from the rocks, their breath rising like smoke. Bran sat upon a boulder, staring north, where the aurora still danced faintly above the horizon. "He is gone," he said, "but not ended." Leaf nodded. "No power so old dies easily. The root-breaker's shadow lingers where life cannot reach. Even the light you brought will not chase him from the edges of the world." "Then he will wait," Bran murmured. "Wait for the world to forget again." Leaf turned to him, her golden eyes soft. "And what of you, Brandon Stark? Will you wait too?" Bran looked down at his hands. They trembled faintly, though not from cold. "I don't know. I feel stretched thin. Part of me still stands at the fissure. Part walks through the roots beneath Winterfell. And part of me hears the song of the old gods. Always, always." Leaf stepped closer, placing her small hand over his. "That is the way of the Greenseer. The more you see, the less you belong to one world alone. You are a bridge between them now." Bran nodded, though the truth of it hurt. He thought of his family, of Jon, of Arya, of Sansa far away in the south. He could see them through the trees, through the wings of ravens that carried his sight across leagues. Yet, though he saw them, he could no longer feel them. The warmth of love, of kinship, it was slipping away, drowned by the vastness of what he had become. When they reached the Wall again, the black gate of stone opened for them without word or command. It seemed to know him now, as it had known the Greenseers who built it. As Bran passed through, he felt the old magic stir, wary, testing him, then settling in quiet acceptance. The Night's Watch was gone. The last of the brothers had long since fallen or fled. The stronghold nearest the passage stood empty, its towers half buried in snow. Bran entered alone, Leaf remaining at the forest's edge. Inside, silence reigned. Dust lay thick upon the tables, and icicles hung from the beams. He found a hearth, still holding a ghost of heat, perhaps a fire once lit by some wandering soul. Bran knelt beside it and placed his hand upon the stone. In an instant, the hall came alive. He saw through time, men of the Watch gathered around the table, drinking and laughing. Lord Commanders long dead standing in solemn council. Vows whispered beneath the banners of the direwolf and the raven. The voices echoed like ghosts. "I am the sword in the darkness," they whispered. "I am the watcher on the walls." Bran closed his eyes. "You kept your watch," he said softly. "Now let me keep mine." The visions faded. When he opened his eyes, he was alone again. He rose and walked to the ramparts, looking out over the wall. The land beyond stretched endless and white, the ruins of the Rootbreaker's fury hidden beneath the snow. Yet Bran could still feel the faint heartbeat of that dark magic, trapped deep under the ice, wounded but alive. He reached into the weirwood network once more, letting his mind flow outward. He felt the roots that had grown beneath the wall intertwine, knitting the wound he had torn in his battle. The magic was different now, cleaner, yet stronger. The wall breathed like a sleeping giant. Leaf appeared beside him, silent as always. "The balance is restored," she said. "For now." "For now," Bran echoed. She studied him carefully. "You cannot stay here forever. The North will need you. The world will need you. The wall may hold back the cold, but men's hearts are colder still. They will forget what was saved for them." Bran's gaze drifted southward. Through the eyes of the trees, he saw Winterfell rebuilt, its halls filled with life once more. He saw Arya riding across the Wolfswood, her hair streaming behind her like a banner. He saw Sansa upon the battlements, her face older, wiser, and weary. "Perhaps they must forget," Bran said. "Perhaps that is the mercy of men. The old magic should sleep. It is not made for their world." Leaf's voice was gentle but firm. "And what of you? Will you sleep too?" Bran turned to her. In his eyes burned the reflection of the weirwoods, red and white and green all at once. "I cannot. Not yet." He turned back to the wall, placing his palm against the ice. The runes glowed faintly beneath his touch. "There are other cracks in the world," he said. "Places where the roots grow thin. I can feel them. Far to the east, beneath the ruins of Valyria, and beyond the seas, where the shadows never lift. The darkness that touched the north was only a fragment. The Rootbreaker sought to awaken something greater." Leaf's expression hardened. "Then the world is not safe." "It never was," Bran replied. They stood together in silence as the first flakes of snow began to fall once more. The wind carried the smell of pine and frost. "Will you go alone?" Leaf asked at last. Bran looked to her, a faint smile on his lips. "No one walks alone in the sight of the old gods." She nodded. "Then go with their blessing, Brandon Stark, the last Greenseer, the keeper of the roots." He inclined his head in return. "And may you guard their memory until all songs are sung." Bran turned from the wall, his cloak stirring in the wind. He walked into the forest, the snow swallowing his steps. As he passed, the trees bent slightly, their branches rustling in quiet reverence. When Leaf looked after him, he was already fading, not vanishing, but blending into the world, becoming part of it. His form wavered like mist, and then he was gone. Only the whisper of the wind remained, carrying his voice through the trees. The North remembers. Above the wall, the aurora flared once more, painting the sky in rivers of light. For a moment, it seemed as though faces moved within it. The faces of the old gods, watching, waiting, far to the north, beneath the snow and ice. The faintest echo stirred, the last remnant of the Rootbreaker's will, faint and slow, but not gone. The battle had ended, yet the song of the world continued, its melody shifting, twisting, and beginning anew. And in that vast silence, the memory of Bran Stark, boy, wolf, king, Greenseer, lingered, rooted deep in the heart of the earth, a guardian eternal beneath the ever-falling snow. In the deep forests of the north, The wind carried stories. It whispered them through the branches of the weirwoods, through the sleeping snow, through the quiet hearts of men who had forgotten the old songs. And if one listened closely, one could almost hear a name, Bran Stark, drifting like a sigh between the rustling leaves. Many winters had passed since the Greenseer vanished beyond the wall. To the small folk of the north, he had become legend. The boy who turned into a bird, the wolf who became a tree, the king who never grew old. To the children of the forest, he was the living bridge between the old gods and the world of men. But to the land itself, he was something more, a silent watcher, unseen yet ever present. Beneath the frozen soil, the roots of the weirwoods pulsed faintly with his power. Ravens flew differently now, guided by something wiser than instinct. The wall still stood, its runes burning faintly with renewed light. And far to the south, where men fought over thrones of wood and iron, winter's touch had softened, as though the heart of the storm had forgotten its rage. But peace, as always, was fleeting. One night, in the God's Wood of Winterfell, the heart tree began to weep anew. The red sap dripped slowly from its eyes, staining the snow like blood. Meisters came to study it, but their books offered no answers. And in the dreams of those who prayed there, strange visions came of a frozen sea, of pale fire beneath black stone, of a song sung in a language no man knew. South of the neck, storms raged where none had before. The Meisters spoke of shifting winds, of changes in the currents of the deep. Fishermen told of the sea itself groaning in the night. Something ancient stirred beneath the waves. And in the far east, beyond the ruins of Valyria, travelers whispered of fire that burned green as emerald, of shadows that walked by day, and of a tree that bled smoke. These things Bran saw, for he saw all. His mind stretched far beyond the north now. He had learned to walk paths no Greenseer before him had dared, through stone, through sea, through flame. The roots of the world were not only trees, he had discovered. They were veins of fire, water, air, and memory. All were one. All could be touched. Yet in that vast knowing, he felt a tremor, a note of dissonance in the song of the world. One night, as he drifted through the dreams of the earth, he found himself standing once more in a field of snow. Above him, the aurora danced, bright and cold. But where once its light had been pure, now it flickered, dimmed by shadow. From the dark beyond the horizon came a whisper. "You did not end me, boy of Winterfell. You only scattered me, and what is scattered may take root again." The root-breaker's voice. Bran stood unmoving. He had known this day would come. No darkness, once born, could ever be truly destroyed. It only slept, waiting for the warmth of memory to wake it. "Show yourself," he said, his voice echoing through the still air. The snow stirred. From beneath it rose a figure. Not the vast shadow he had faced before, but a smaller, quieter form. A man-shaped thing of frost and bark. Its eyes glowed faintly, like dying embers. "I am not as I was," it said. "You burned my name from the roots, broke my hold on the trees. Yet there are other roots, Greenseer, deeper ones, older ones. The fire beneath the world remembers me." Bran's gaze hardened. "The fire beneath the world is not yours to command." "It will be," said the root-breaker. "When the tree of ice and the tree of flame become one, the world will remember what it truly is, a song of ending." And before Bran could answer, the vision shattered. He woke beneath a heart tree deep in the wolfswood. The snow around him steamed faintly. His breath came fast, though he no longer needed breath to live. "He's reaching beyond the north now," Bran murmured. Beyond the wall, beyond the cold, he seeks the fire. The forest rustled in answer, uneasy. Bran knew what must be done. He turned his gaze eastward, across leagues of land and sea, through the roots of ash and oak, through the scales of dragons sleeping in the bones of Valyria, through the molten rivers that ran beneath the earth. He saw the place the Rootbreaker spoke of, a cavern of fire where black stone pulsed like a heart. There, bound in flame, was something older even than the Greenseers, a heart tree that burned, its trunk blackened, its sap molten gold. Around it lay the bones of dragons and men alike, the fire tree. It had been born in the dawn of the world, when the first dragons rose from the earth's blood, and the children sang the spells that divided fire from frost. Its roots had once touched those of the weirwoods until the world was sundered by war. The Greenseers of ice had sealed it away, fearing its hunger. But now the Rootbreaker sought it, to bind his essence to fire as once he had bound it to ice. If he succeeded, the balance of the world would shatter. Bran rose and began his journey east. He crossed the forests and the snows unseen, his spirit traveling in the wings of ravens, in the dreams of wolves, in the whispers of rivers. Leaf did not follow. She had faded back into the roots long ago, her task complete. But others watched him now, the shadows of the children who still lingered in hidden groves, the spirits of men long dead, and the old gods themselves. He passed the ruins of the wall, its runes glowing faintly as he went. He crossed the narrow sea through the eyes of gulls and seals, feeling the chill of salt and wind. He drifted over the smoking islands of Valyria, where rivers of molten rock flowed like blood and the air shimmered with heat. At last, he came to the cavern. It lay within a mountain of glass and ash, its entrance wide as a hall. The heat was unbearable, even to one who no longer felt cold. He stepped inside, and the light of the fire tree filled the space, a blaze of gold and crimson. At its base, a shape waited, the Rootbreaker. But now he was changed. His body was no longer of ice or shadow, but of molten stone. His eyes burned red as coals. He smiled as Bran entered. "Welcome, Greenseer," he said. "You followed the roots to their end." "This is not the end," Bran said. "It is the beginning." The Rootbreaker's laugh was like cracking firewood. "Indeed, the beginning of a new song, one that neither gods nor men can silence." The fire tree pulsed behind him, its branches writhing like living flame. Its roots reached outward, seeking Bran. He felt their heat brush his mind. They called to him, "Join us. Become whole." Bran closed his eyes and reached instead for the cold, for the voice of the old gods carried through ice and memory. The air between fire and frost shimmered, torn by the meeting of two ancient powers, and as the mountain shook around them, Bran Stark, last Greenseer of the North, stood once more between life and death, ice and flame, memory and oblivion. The Battle of Roots was not ended. It had only changed its song. The cavern of flame roared like the breath of a dragon. Heat shimmered from every surface, and the air quivered with a sound deeper than thunder. A pulse, slow and vast, echoing from the burning heart tree at its center. Its trunk was blackened by age, but its branches writhed with living fire. Rivers of molten sap ran down its bark, and wherever they touched the stone, it hissed and smoked. Bran Stark stood before it, his cloak already smoldering at the edges. The fire did not harm him, not yet. It only tested him, reaching toward him with tendrils of golden flame. He could feel its curiosity, its hunger. Across from him, the Rootbreaker waited, his body forged anew in heat and ash. Where once he had been shadow and ice, Now he was flame and fury, his form shifting with the same restless motion as the fire tree behind him. His voice was low, but it carried like the growl of the earth. "Do you feel it, boy? This is the other half of the world you thought you knew. The children worshipped ice and called it purity. But fire is the first god, the first memory. The dragons remembered it when men forgot." Bran's eyes shone pale and steady. "Fire burns, but it also destroys. The weirwoods remember, they endure." "Endurance is not life," the Rootbreaker said. "It is stagnation. You bound me once, chained me to frost and root. But even ice melts, and from its water comes new flame. You cannot stop what must be reborn." The fire tree pulsed again. The light from it filled the cavern, washing over Bran's face, turning his pale eyes gold. He felt its voice now, deeper than sound, a voice older than the forest, older than men. "Child of the cold, why do you come here? You are not of my blood. You are the memory of stillness. I am the memory of creation." Bran drew a breath, though he no longer needed air. "I come to keep the balance. The world cannot live in flame alone." The fire answered with laughter that shook the stone. The world was born in flame. Only fire remembers the song of beginnings. Ice silences it, hides it in endless sleep. Bran raised his hands, and the light of the weirwoods flared around him, soft green and white, glowing like moonlight through leaves. "The song needs both," he said. "Without silence, the flame burns too bright and devours all." The Rootbreaker stepped closer. "You sound like the children once did, before they feared their own power. But tell me, Bran Stark, what of men? The ones who build their thrones from death and call it peace? Why protect a world that only destroys itself?" Bran's gaze hardened. "Because men can change. Because memory guides them, even when they forget. The trees remember for them. I remember." The Rootbreaker's eyes blazed red. "Then you are no different from me. You would bind them to the past as I would bind them to truth. You cling to memory like a chain." With that, he struck. A torrent of fire leapt from his hands, sweeping toward Bran like the wing of a burning dragon. Bran raised his arms, and from the stone floor burst roots of pale light, weirwood roots, drawn through the very bones of the earth. They met the flame in a storm of sparks, fire against ice, memory against creation. The cavern shook. The mountain above groaned like a waking beast. Bran's mind split across worlds. Through the roots, he felt the forests of the north tremble. Through the flame, he felt the dragons in distant lands stir in their sleep. The balance of the world teetered on the edge of his will. The Rootbreaker laughed through the blaze. "You cannot fight me forever, boy. You are flesh-bound to time. I am the song eternal." "You are noise," Bran said, "and I will silence you." He reached deeper into the weirwood network, past the forests and the snow, into the heart of every living memory. The faces in the trees glowed with white fire. The red sap of their eyes turned gold. The wall flared like a beacon in the far distance. The old gods themselves seemed to stir, their voices rising as one. Through him they sang, not words, but the echo of all that had ever been. The Rootbreaker stumbled, his flames guttering. "What are you doing?" "Reminding the world who it is," Bran said. The roots surged, twining around the fire tree. The flame hissed and roared, struggling to free itself, but the light of the weirwood spread, mingling with the gold until both burned together. Green, red, white, and gold, the colors of life itself. The Rootbreaker screamed, his body shattering like glass. "You cannot destroy me, Greenseer. You are me." Bran's voice was calm, terrible in its certainty. "Then I will destroy what I must." The light swallowed them both. For a moment, there was no fire, no ice, no sound, only stillness. Then came the voice of the world, deep and vast and weary. "Balance is not peace. Balance is breath. One cannot live without the other." Bran opened his eyes. He stood at the edge of a vast plain, neither forest nor fire, but something between. The ground shimmered like glass, and above him hung a sky split in two, half flame, half frost. In the distance, he saw two trees, one white, one black, their roots entwined. Between them, something glimmered faintly, a pool of still water, neither hot nor cold. The rootbreaker stood beside him, his form dimmed, human again. "So," he said softly, "this is what you've made." "It is what was always meant to be," Bran answered. The older Greenseer looked down at his hands. They were whole, yet fading, turning to ash. "You've tied me to the balance. I cannot live outside it." "No one can," Bran said. The rootbreaker smiled faintly. "Then perhaps I was wrong." He turned toward the twin trees and began to walk. With each step, his form grew fainter until he was only light, merging with the roots and vanishing into the stillness. Bran stood alone. The air around him shimmered, neither hot nor cold. The song of the world had quieted, but its melody endured, steady, fragile, eternal. He felt the weirwoods breathing again, the fire tree burning softly at their heart. The two forces were one now, neither dominant, neither defeated. When he opened his eyes again, he was standing once more in the real world, upon a hill overlooking the smoking lands of Valyria. The air was cool. The volcanoes slept. The fire tree still burned faintly below, but its flames no longer raged. Bran turned his face to the wind. For the first time in many years, he felt warmth and chill at once, life and death bound together. He closed his eyes. Through the roots beneath his feet, he felt the pulse of the world, calm, alive, balanced. Then, far away beyond the sea and the snows, he heard the faint cry of a raven. It called not in warning, nor in grief, but in greeting. The world had not ended. It had begun anew. The smoke of Valyria drifted behind him like a memory of fire. For days Bran walked eastward, though his body scarcely touched the earth. He moved as both man and spirit, half bound to flesh and half to the vast pulse of the living world. Each step he took, the land seemed to stir. Grass bent toward him, winds shifted, clouds opened. The earth knew him. Beyond the smoking mountains lay plains of glass and stone, blackened by old flame. Rivers of ash wound through canyons where nothing grew. Yet even here, beneath the ruin, Bran could feel faint tremors of life, the breath of hidden roots, the sleeping hum of deep creatures untouched by sun or snow. The world healed itself, slowly, in silence. But his thoughts were not quiet. They turned again and again to the face of the rootbreaker, the man of ice, of fire, of broken time. Even now, Bran could feel echoes of him, faint ripples in the current of the earth. A presence not gone, merely buried. The Greenseer's sacrifice had sealed their battle, yet the old power had not perished. It lingered, patient, waiting in the veins of the world like seed beneath the soil. Balance is breath, the voice of the world had said. One cannot live without the other. He understood those words now. The fire and the ice were not enemies. They were truths, dangerous, beautiful, incomplete. Without one, the other would consume everything. And so Bran wandered, neither victor nor captive, a silent guardian of a world still learning how to breathe. At the edge of the blackened plain, he came to a forest unlike any he had seen. The trees were young, their bark pale gold, their leaves glimmering faintly as if dusted with frost. When he placed a hand upon their trunks, warmth pulsed beneath his palm. Fire and ice together, fused in living wood. He smiled faintly. "You have learned," he whispered to the trees. "The world remembers what it must." A raven landed on a branch above him, black feathers tipped with silver. It tilted its head, watching him with bright, clever eyes. "Old friend," Bran murmured. The bird croaked once, hopping closer. When it spoke, its voice was not its own. "The forest wakes, and yet it trembles. Do you feel it, Stark?" Bran nodded. "Always." "The winds carry new songs," the raven said. "Men war again. In the west they dig too deep. In the south they build thrones of gold. And in the far east, something stirs beneath the sea." Bran's brow furrowed. "The sea?" "The water remembers too," said the raven. "You have mended the roots, but the waves sing another tune. They remember what the fire forgot, the darkness below." Bran gazed eastward beyond the horizon. "The abyss," he murmured. "The song of depths." The raven spread its wings. "You cannot be everywhere, Greenseer. The world must learn to stand on its own." "I know," Bran said softly. "But if the roots fall, all else falls with them." The raven cocked its head again. "Then send your sight where your body cannot go. The trees are your eyes, the rivers your blood. Look and remember." Then it took flight, vanishing into the rising dawn. Bran closed his eyes. His mind sank through the soil, through stone and molten rock, into the deep water beneath the world. He saw rivers of fire flowing beside rivers of ice, their currents twisting together like serpents. He saw vast caverns where the ocean's weight pressed upon black stone, and in those depths he felt movement, a slow stirring, a dream older than the gods of men. Something vast opened an unseen eye, and the sea quivered around it. Bran pulled back, gasping. The air rushed into his lungs like frost and flame at once. He fell to his knees, trembling. "So it wakes," he whispered. The trees around him rustled softly. Their golden leaves trembled as if in answer. Bran understood. The darkness that had once called the Rootbreaker was not dead. It had only changed its face, waiting for another vessel, another will. He rose, steadying himself. "Then I must find the dream before it wakes." For days, Bran followed the song of the sea. His spirit crossed the burning sands of Essos, the green plains of Sarnor, the desolate bones of Valyria's doom. Wherever he passed, life stirred faintly. Flowers blooming through ash, rivers thawing beneath the sun. Yet ahead, always, he felt that faint tremor from beneath the waves. On the 7th night, he came to the coast where the land fell away into the smoking sea. The air there was thick and wet, tasting of salt and metal. The waves glowed faintly from within, lit by fire that burned beneath the water. He stood upon the cliffs and watched the horizon shift with each breath. The sea was alive, not with wind or wave, but with will. "You called to him," Bran said softly, and he answered. "Now I am here." The water churned. A low hum rose from the depths, deep as thunder, steady as a heartbeat. A shape appeared beneath the surface, vast, coiling, ancient. Its outline glimmered for only an instant, but in that instant, Bran saw everything: scales like black glass, eyes like suns, and a voice that spoke not in words, but in knowing. "Child of roots and shadow," it said, "you stand where the world ends and begins. Do you seek to bind me as you bound the flame?" Bran's heart pounded, though he no longer needed it to live. "I seek to understand. What are you?" "The memory of the sea," the voice said. "The first dream of the world. Before fire, before frost, there was water, deep and endless. All things were born from me, and all things shall return. Bran felt the pull of it, vast and terrible, a promise of peace too large to refuse. You would drown the world, he said. I would free it, the sea answered. The roots you tend hold life prisoner. The flames you fear consume it. But I forget, and in forgetting there is mercy. Bran closed his eyes. I cannot let you rise. You cannot stop me, said the voice. The fire called me. The ice woke me. Balance is breath, Greenseer, and breath ends. The sea rose, waves towering like mountains. Lightning danced across the sky. Bran spread his arms, his mind reaching through the roots of the world, through every living tree and every spark of flame still burning in the ruins of Valyria. He called upon them both, ice and fire, and bound them together once more. The wind howled, the sea screamed, and for a moment the world hung suspended between creation and death. Then, as quickly as it had risen, the sea stilled. The glow faded from beneath the waves. The air fell silent again. Bran stood upon the cliffs, drenched but unburned, his eyes glowing faintly green. The voice was gone, but its echo lingered in his bones. He knew then that he had not won. The dream of the sea would sleep again, but not forever. Nothing in the world ever truly ended. He turned from the shore, walking inland, the first light of dawn spilling gold across the blackened stone. Behind him, the ocean breathed, slow, deep, eternal. And far to the north, beyond the wall, the weirwoods sighed in their sleep. The balance endured. For now, the sea slept once more, its vast heart lulled by the Greenseer's will. Yet even in stillness, Bran knew it dreamed. All things that slept dreamed. Men, trees, dragons, even the land itself. And in dreams, memory moved like water through stone, wearing away the edges of peace. He lingered upon the cliffs until the sun rose high. Its light fell upon the waves in molten silver, the color of forgotten crowns. For the first time in many years, Bran felt the warmth of the sun on his skin, and it reminded him of the boy he had once been, the boy who climbed the towers of Winterfell and dreamed of flying. He wondered what that boy would think of what he had become. The wind carried the answer, soft and simple. He would not understand, but he would not turn away. Bran smiled faintly. Nor can I. He turned east, where mountains rose like teeth from the horizon. The fire that once burned in Valyria still smoldered in their depths, though the doom had long since cooled. He walked toward them, following the call of the roots that grew beneath the earth. For even here, in this land of glass and ash, life sought to return. He passed through valleys of stone that glowed red in the twilight, where rivers of molten rock slithered through cracks like serpents seeking escape. Strange trees grew upon their banks, thin and tall, with bark of obsidian and leaves of gold. When Bran brushed their trunks, he felt the mingled song of fire and ice, faint but in harmony. These were the first children of the new world, born from the joining of powers he had once believed could never coexist. At night, the stars burned brighter than he remembered, and their light shimmered across the plains like frost. The constellations had shifted since the age of men began. The heavens, too, had changed. The world was turning toward something new, and Bran could feel it in every breath of wind. But peace was never more than a pause between storms. On the fourth night, as he rested beneath one of the golden trees, the earth trembled beneath him, the roots quivered, and a whisper crept through the soil, cold and familiar. You keep the balance poorly, Greenseer. Even now, the world tilts. Bran's eyes opened, pale and glowing in the dark. Who speaks? The voice came from all around him, from the rustling leaves, from the hiss of molten stone. The one you silenced, yet never killed. I am not the Rootbreaker, though his shadow gave me birth. I am the echo that follows every flame and frost. The world does not need another shadow, Bran said. It does not need you either, the voice replied. You have bound the earth, the sea, and the sky to your will, but even the gods grow weary of their keepers. When you fall, the balance will break again, and this time, there will be no hand to mend it. Bran rose slowly. Around him, the night deepened. The golden leaves of the trees began to wither, curling in upon themselves as if burned by unseen fire. The ground split in thin cracks, and from them oozed black sap. You would have the world devoured by dark again? Bran asked. Not devoured, said the voice, remade. The fissures widened, and from them shapes began to crawl. Not men, not beasts, but something between. Their skin was the color of coal, their eyes pale as moons. They moved with the sound of whispering roots. These are not yours, Bran said, though his words trembled. They are the world's forgotten thoughts, the shadow murmured. The dreams even you cannot see. They have always been here, waiting for the silence to return. The creatures advanced, their steps cracking the earth. Bran reached outward with his will, calling upon the power of the weirwoods, the fire trees, and even the sleeping sea. Light burst from his hands, green, gold, and blue at once, and the air shook with the force of it. The shadow things shrieked and fell back, their forms dissolving into mist. The voice laughed softly. You fight well, little god, but every light casts a shadow. Every root feeds upon what rots beneath. When you burn me away, you only make the ground fertile for my return. Bran's power dimmed, and the forest grew still again. He stood among the ashes of the battle, his breath steady but slow. I do not seek to destroy you, he said at last, but I will not let you rule. You are the echo, not the song. And when the singer fades, the shadow asked, who will remember the tune? Bran said nothing. The darkness retreated, folding itself back into the cracks of the earth. Soon the wind was the only sound again, and the golden trees began to shimmer faintly with life once more. He knew now that his task was far from done. The Rootbreaker had been only the beginning. The world itself had many voices, and not all of them sought harmony. Some thrived in discord, feeding on the struggle between creation and destruction. Perhaps that too was part of the balance. Bran looked to the horizon where dawn was breaking, the sky awash with pale crimson light. He felt the warmth of the sun on his face and thought of the wall, of Winterfell, of the boy he had been. He had walked so far from that boy that he scarcely remembered what it meant to dream of simple things, of laughter, of family, of home. Yet the memory still lived within him, faint as a candle in a storm. He knelt and pressed his palm to the earth. You are not my enemy, he whispered to the unseen shadow, nor am I yours. But if you rise again to unmake what I have mended, I will be waiting. The ground was quiet. Then, faintly, came a reply, not words, but a sigh, deep and tired. The earth settled. Bran stood once more. His eyes turned northward, where the first snows of a new winter had begun to fall. Somewhere beyond those white plains, the roots of the old world still reached for the sky. I will return, he said softly, when the world forgets again. He began to walk, each step slow, deliberate. The light of the rising sun followed him, setting his cloak aflame with gold. Behind him, the golden trees swayed in silence. Their leaves shimmered once, then fell, covering his footprints in quiet reverence. And so Bran Stark, The boy who fell, the king who watched, the Greenseer who bound the world, vanished into the dawn, leaving only whispers in his wake. The godswood of the north would one day tell his story to those who listened closely enough. Of fire and ice, of light and shadow, of a boy who became the memory of the world. And when the wind sighed through their branches, men would think it only the sound of winter coming, but the trees would remember, always. The snows of the north fell again, soft and ceaseless, blanketing the world in silence. They drifted over mountains and frozen rivers, over the black stones of Winterfell, over the great wall that stood eternal in the cold. Beneath that endless white, all things slept, wolves and men, kings and beggars alike, while the roots of the world whispered of what had been and what might come again. And somewhere beyond that stillness, far beyond the wall and the reach of mortal eyes, Bran Stark walked once more among the trees. He did not walk as men do. His body was older now, though age touched him strangely. His limbs did not wither, his breath did not falter, but the light within his eyes burned with an ancient knowing that no man should bear. Around him, the weirwoods bent their faces low, their red leaves falling like tears. He had been gone from the world of men for what seemed an age, yet in truth, time had little meaning where he dwelled. Seasons passed as moments. Centuries might have drifted by like the turning of a page. Still, the north remembered him. When the wind blew through the heart tree at Winterfell, its sigh sounded faintly of his name. The ravens that nested in its boughs sometimes stared at men with eyes far too wise. Children born beneath its shadow dreamed of a pale boy with the eyes of a wolf who walked between snow and flame. Now he had come north again, drawn by a song too faint for others to hear. It came not from the trees, nor the rivers, but from the earth itself, a low, patient hum that spoke of change. He followed it through the forests where the White Walkers had once roamed, through fields where ancient stones jutted from the frost like the bones of forgotten gods. Each step he took awakened the land. The snow stirred beneath his feet, and the air filled with the scent of pine and blood. At last, he came to the edge of a vast frozen lake. Its surface was smooth as glass, its depths dark as the void. Bran stood at its center, and for a moment, all was still. Then the ice cracked with a sound like a sigh, and light spilled upward from below. In that light, he saw faces, dozens, hundreds, thousands, men and women, children and beasts, all flickering like candles. They were memories of those who had come before, souls swallowed by the ages and kept within the world's heart. They looked up at him, their eyes full of wonder and sorrow. He knelt upon the ice, placing his hand against it. "Sleep," he whispered. "Your song is not forgotten." The light dimmed, but the faces did not fade. They lingered, watching him, and among them one appeared clearer than the rest. A boy of his own age, dark-haired, his eyes bright with mischief. Rickon. Bran's breath caught. "Brother." The boy smiled. His lips moved, though no sound came. Bran's heart ached with the weight of all he had lost. For a moment, he wished to shatter the ice, to reach through and hold his brother one last time. But the world's balance was fragile, and he could not risk it. "Rest well," Bran murmured. "The North remembers." The face faded, leaving only light. Bran rose and turned his gaze northward once more. There, on the horizon, a storm was rising, but it was no storm of snow or shadow. It glowed faintly with green and gold, a radiance unlike any he had seen since the fire tree's awakening. It pulsed in rhythm with the world's breath, steady and deep. The storm was alive. He walked toward it for 3 days and nights, though neither sun nor moon marked the passing of time. The air grew thick with power, old and raw. The snow beneath his feet melted into earth, and from that earth sprouted shoots of grass, pale, tender, defiant against the cold. When he reached the storm's edge, he found himself standing in a vast clearing ringed with weirwoods. Their trunks were not white, but silver, their leaves a mingling of red and gold. In their center grew a single tree greater than all the rest. Its roots spread wide across the ground, its branches reaching to the heavens. This was no heart tree of man or child, no relic of the old gods. This was the world tree, the first and last of all roots, born in the dawn before dawn. Its voice filled the clearing. "You return, child of wolf and memory." Bran bowed his head. "I come to see what remains." "All things remain," said the tree, "even those that seem lost. You mended the broken song. Now it must learn to sing itself." "The world is not healed," Bran said. "The sea still dreams, the shadows still whisper, and men still war and forget." "That is their way," said the tree. "Even gods cannot mend the hearts of men, but they can remind them that the heart still beats." Bran looked upon the vast roots twining through the ground. "Then what would you have me do?" "Remember," the tree said, "and let them remember through you." A silence fell. The wind moved through the golden leaves, and their sound was like the breath of distant seas. Bran felt the weight of all he had seen, the fire, the frost, the sea, the shadow, the endless struggle between remembering and forgetting. At last, he said, "I am tired." "Then rest," said the tree, "but do not sleep. The world still needs a watcher." Bran nodded. He stepped forward, placing both hands upon the trunk. The bark was warm, pulsing faintly beneath his touch. The song of the world flowed through him. Fire, water, air, and earth. Every heartbeat of every living thing. He closed his eyes. The roots of the tree rose to meet him, wrapping gently around his body. He did not resist. They wound through his limbs, his chest, his heart, until he was part of the tree itself. His breath slowed, then ceased. Yet within the branches above, a new wind stirred, and in the distance, a raven took flight. Its feathers gleamed with both shadow and light. It flew north first, then turned south, its cry echoing across the lands of men. And in Winterfell's godswood, the heart tree opened its eyes. They were pale and clear, the color of morning frost. A boy's voice spoke through the rustling of leaves. "I am the watcher on the roots. I am the memory of the world." The ravens called in answer, and far away, the wind carried his words across mountains and seas. The age of the Greenseer had ended. The age of the remembering had begun. And though the world would forget again, as it always did, somewhere, beneath the snow and the stars, the trees would whisper his name, soft as falling leaves. Bran Stark, last of the Starks, first of the roots, the one who held the world between fire and ice, and the song of the earth went on, eternal.